We're now streaming live on Facebook. We'd like to thank all our viewers for tuning in today. We're going to be addressing a serious concern throughout the earth today with Mr. Victer Muhammad and Dr. Patrice Muhammad. Hold on one second, everyone. Today's topic is understanding the historical record in the use of Interferon alpha to combat the coronavirus. In the news today, you've seen many of us. Can you all still see me? Okay, but you can't hear me. Okay. In the news today, many of us have been dealing with the corona and its effect on the public at large. Tonight we have with us Mr. Victer Muhammad, who is a biomedical science research and engineer, and Patrice Muhammad of Health at Its Best in Chicago, Illinois, and you also, myself, Eric Muhammad of naturesv.com. We want to go right into tonight's presentation. There seems to be some video issues, but I think that we have them solved now. Thank you both for coming on this evening. And Mr. Victer Muhammad, could you please give us a slight introduction to as your background as a biomedical scientist so people can know why you are speaking on the subject, and then we can go right into what is the SARS coronavirus. Hold on one second, let me unmute your phone. There we go.
Good evening. My name is Victer Muhammad, and I am a biomedical research scientist as well as an agricultural research scientist. I have approximately 30 years as a biomedical research scientist and about 37 years as an agricultural research scientist. I have worked with viruses in the health arena for the last 30 years. In fact, my introduction into biomedical research was with the HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, with the Sendai virus, and various other viruses such as hepatitis C, which is a virus in the same family as the coronavirus. So I've got about 30 years experience working with and around viruses. And so when the new activity began to take place, I guess about a month ago with the coronavirus, I followed it for a while. And as it began to gain momentum in its pathogenicity, I decided that it is time that we address it, because there are a lot of misnomers floating around regarding this virus, and someone needs to address those so that it will bring some balance to the equation that has now become the coronavirus epidemic.
Yes, sir. Let's get right into it. What is the coronavirus?
I think we will allow Dr. Patrice to address that question.
Okay.
I think that she is very qualified in responding to that question.
Okay. Dr. Patrice Muhammad, could you please let us know and tell us what the coronavirus is, please?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen because I developed a document that could help with that. And let me make sure that you can see it. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So the document that I composed is very simple. I'm not going to read everything word for word. I do a brief description of what are coronaviruses. They are a large family of viruses, which there are 7 known types of human coronaviruses. You have 4, which are the types that are numbered there, and they are common and may cause mild to moderate respiratory infections like the common cold. There are 2 types, in particular, the SARS, the virus, which stands for severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, as you see there, that developed in November 2002, and the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which was developed in Saudi Arabia, or the first case appeared in Saudi Arabia in 2012. The 7th type, which is now what they call a novel coronavirus, which appeared in December of 2019 and recently discovered in China. And when I say novel coronavirus, I am speaking of a coronavirus that has a new strain and it's not been previously found in people. And those that get coronaviruses, most people become infected like the common cold. It gets spread airborne, and in particular, the viruses that were here before, as I mentioned, the more severe type, which is SARS of 2002. And that virus quickly spread to more than 24 countries in North America. There was several outbreaks there, as well as, again, as I previously mentioned, in the Middle East. And how do you get it? Just like you get the common cold, it's spread from an infected person to others through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes, touches another person, mouth, or when somebody sneezes and they're touching their mouth and touch someone else. That's how you catch it, by contact. 3 human coronaviruses are thought to be spread from infected humans to people. And this new novel coronavirus is one of those. Those that have coronavirus infection specifically complain of a dry cough. They complain of a dry cough, possibly a fever, possibly abdominal cramps, possibly diarrhea, but headache, sore throat. Just like you get a virus of the flu, common cold, maybe even pneumonia, but some people can go on to develop kidney failure and even death. This is like a multi-organ system that starts to fail with this virus as it progresses. And it depends on the type of virus, but in general, it usually takes about 2 to 4 days for symptoms to appear after you're exposed. And then there are a series of laboratory tests. In particular, they do a nasal swab. They may do what's called an oropharyngeal swab in the throat, and they test those swabs for coronavirus. And then I'll let Mr. Victer Muhammad kind of go into the treatment, or I would say a therapy or a therapeutic component of it. But I'll just say this. Basic standard precautions, washing your hands, which is very, very, very important, is proper hand washing, frequent hand washing, covering your nose with a tissue, avoiding your eyes, nose and mouth with unwashed hands, avoid close contact with people who are sick. Stay home if you're sick. Wash your hands when you have contact with animals, and avoid contact with animals who are, of course, sick. And I said one more thing, but one more thing, literally. I want to show this about the treatment, or what's been shown to be effective with coronavirus. my internet was a little unstable, so it left. I'll let Mr. Victer Muhammad go into that. I'm sure he'll mention the studies that are that have been effective in showing that immunotherapy, interferon alpha, has been therapeutic and has shown to be effective for coronavirus. I'll just stop there for now.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. We want to go further in. There is another question. I don't know if Mr. Victer Muhammad would like Dr. Muhammad to take this one too. What is SARS?
SARS is severe acute respiratory syndrome. And SARS was one of the coronavirus in the coronavirus family. And that was the massive respiratory scare or viral scare we had in 2002. November 2002 is when it started. And it's stated to have had 717 fatalities at that time. Now, as of today, there is speculated that it's, well, not speculated, but they have confirmed, quote unquote, confirmed 810 cases of the novel coronavirus.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Mr. Victer Muhammad, is there a difference between the coronavirus and the SARS virus?
When you answer a question as a researcher or a scientist, you almost give the same type of responses as that of a lawyer or an attorney. The reason being is because you really have to be careful with your responses because it depends. And it literally does depend. Now, SARS is not a virus. SARS is a disease or a function or a symptom of a viral infection. And the virus that is reported to be the causative agent of SARS is a form of the coronavirus. So yes and no is the answer because one is a symptom of the other.
Thank you. Is the coronavirus new? We've heard about it.
Well, relatively speaking, yes. I believe that in the literature, if the literature is correct, the coronavirus was first characterized, I believe, in the 1990s, I believe. And it is not new, but the way it's reported in the literature, you have new strains of it, or new variations, or new species. And it's like what is being reported with the flu. Maybe CDC or Health and Human Services or some governmental agency that tracks the flu will tell you that there's a new strain this year or two new strains this year that's different than any other strain we've seen. So when you hear the word strain, it just means that one of the older strains has naturally mutated or has been altered by some mechanical mechanism that caused it to change or develop a new gene or a new antigen on the surface of the virus. The SARS is a plus RNA virus, and not the SARS, excuse me, but the coronavirus is a plus RNA virus. And that's a class of viruses like hepatitis C. And so all it takes is one gene to change on that virus or in that virus, and now you potentially have a new strain.
With the new strain, I wanted to ask you, there seems to be a effort toward the world preparing itself for an epidemic or a pandemic. Do you see that as being how we should get ready for this new coronavirus?
I think that if we were to be honest, it has already reached the stage of an epidemic. And I've forgotten the numbers that are required for a pandemic, but you want to always be careful when you say something in the public. And I'm trying to do that. So you have to weigh the consequences of one presentation against the benefit of the other when making this type of decision.
Okay.
I would rather overestimate than underestimate, because it's better to have more ammunition than not enough. And so I believe that we can safely say that it has already reached a level of an epidemic. And if it continues in the way that it's going, then it is reasonable to conclude that it very well could reach pandemic levels if it continues in the way that it's going within a week, maybe 2 weeks, because there are cases now being found in other countries. I think about 3 or 4 as the last time I checked. So I think it's reasonable to conclude that if things continue in the way they're going, it's reasonable to suspect that it will reach pandemic proportions.
With your knowledge of the SARS virus, and this question is to you or Dr. Muhammad, people get the flu all the time, and we get it every season. What is the difference in this SARS virus and any other influenza that we get annually, and the death rates or the sickness rates that come from it?
I don't think the pathogenicity of the coronavirus is any more threatening or serious than the influenza virus or the rhinovirus, both of which cause the common cold or the flu. And if you check, generally, the virus that we're experiencing today, the one that has been identified in China, it is I think its mortality rate is between 10 and 15% of those who are infected. And in that 10 to 15%, it is generally people who are elderly and have compromised or weakened immune system, or people who are already sick with some other disease or ailment that has them weak or have a weakened immune system. And so the average person today, particularly in America, because of our diet, we already have weakened immune systems simply because of our diet. Okay. The average American, well, I won't say that, but America has more obese people than any other population on the earth. And anyone who studies nutrition and human health and physiology, you know that fatty tissue is a magnet and a incubator for diseases, infections, microorganisms that will infect the body. And so there are many aspects of obesity that contribute to a weakened body. And that's all 9 of the systems in the body including with specificity the immune system.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Dr. Muhammad, did you want to comment?
Yes, I'd just like to add that influenza is much more common, of course, and it has been much more virulent than corona. It's already been, for the 2019-2020 flu season, has already been 10,000 deaths. So, that's not getting coverage. How many people are dying from influenza, although they have the influenza vaccine, and they're encouraging everyone to get the influenza vaccine to minimize or prevent the occurrence of actual influenza and influenza infection and mortality possibly from it. So it's supposed to help decrease the morbidity and mortality of influenza. But again, 10,000 people have already died, and there's somewhere up towards 180,000 people that have been hospitalized in the U.S. due to influenza.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. This question is to both of you. Also, should the people in the U.S. be concerned about the coronavirus? Dr. Muhammad? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Muhammad.
I'll allow Victer Muhammad because he has a very important influence on what we're dealing with here with corona, with him being a research scientist. I'd like to.
Thank you. I believe that the American people definitely should be concerned about the coronavirus. And the reason I say that is not the typical reason that you've probably heard in the media or from health officials. I'm not sure that all is being spoken about this virus. I see the people in Asia as I travel around the world. I see them in international airports in the Middle East, in Africa, but particularly in the Middle East, and they have the mask on their face. And I've heard over the last week, people in America talking about buying the mask to put over their faces. I will not say that the mask won't provide some preventive factors. But I don't want the people to get a false sense of security with those masks. A virus, other than a microorganism called a prion, I don't know of another organism, living organism, that is smaller than a virus. And when I was in the laboratory doing research, in order to sterile filter something like a media or a solution, we had to get filters that had a pore space that was smaller than 0.2 microns. 0.2 microns. That is extremely small. You can't see it with the naked eye. And that is the pore size that those masks that the people wear on their faces would have to preclude a virus from being able to pass through it. So it's almost to the point where if air can come through it, then a virus can come through it. That's almost as small as a virus is. So I will not go on record as saying that the mask won't provide some protection. But I don't want you to be fooled in thinking that by you wearing a mask that you got from some doctor's office or that you bought from Walmart or something is going to prevent a virus from penetrating it. And so I don't know if we know all that there is to know about this new strain of virus because first of all, we don't have actual facts of its origin. So how can I tell you about it and be conclusive in my reporting to you when we don't know everything that there is to know about it? So anything that I say would be, and what would be called an educated guess. Now, what I would suggest is that, well, we can deal with it later. But my short answer to your question, Mr. Muhammad, is that, yes, the American people should be concerned, because if I remember correctly today, there are cases that have shown up on American soil now.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Dr. Muhammad, what are some of the other normal precautions people can take day to day that, influenza is spread? And obviously, based on what we just heard, it's the same exactly for the spreading of the SARS virus. So what are some of the other ways we can keep from getting the SARS virus? Unmute your phone. Unmute yourself. You're still muted. Okay.
Okay. As I am showing here, these are some of the ways that you can prevent the spread of coronavirus from standard contact with people and animals. And it's the same as they tell you when you have a cold or when you have influenza, the flu. They want you to wash your hands, cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze, avoid touching your eyes, mouth, nose with hands, avoid close contact with somebody who's sick, including sharing utensils. Clean or disinfect frequently touch surfaces and objects such as toys, doorknobs, etc., especially if people in the home are sick. Stay home if you're sick. Wash hands after you have contact with, if you're working in a farm or in a barn, when you have contact with those animals, or you have animals in your personal home who are sick. Along with, I also would add this. Most people will get those sprays. You get those disinfectant sprays. I don't necessarily, I don't recommend those in particular, but if you have a spray of an essential oil, such as a peppermint eucalyptus blend, lemongrass, some of these sprays that you spray that are not harmful to you within the respiratory system, you can use those, and they are very effective at keeping the viral and bacterial count down. So those are just basic contact things that we can do, which definitely will help with contact and spreading infections from person to person.
Thank you. Hold on. Can you unshare your screen?
Sure.
Thank you. I was on Facebook the other day, and there was a gentleman who posted on Facebook, and he had the back of a Lysol can. And on the back of the Lysol can, it listed all of the germs that it killed out of the 99% of the germs that it killed. And listed on the back of the Lysol can is the coronavirus. He turned it around, he snapshotted it, he put it right there, said the Lysol kills this. I just wanted to say that based on what you just said, it's a germ that seems to be common as a, I guess you would call it an influenza or a cold, but now we have this epidemic type presentation from the media about it. What are some of the things that we can do to better understand how to prevent getting the coronavirus or any other type of virus that you know of, Mr. Victer Muhammad, from a scientific perspective?
I don't think that there is enough known about this particular strain of virus in order to make a factual recommendation. I think that the most prudent thing to do would be to keep your body healthy, to keep your immune system formidable, to get enough rest, to remain hydrated, drinking water, juices, think natural juices, not some blend of this and something that somebody made up in a manufacturing facility. Just regular plain juice, like apple juice, and water, and not eating so much meat. Meat is prone to carry microorganisms. And people who eat a lot of meat, particularly red meat, generally will have more infections, more microorganisms in their body, whether they become sick or not. And by getting enough rest, eating properly, and exercising, I think that that's the best approach to avoiding an infection or avoiding a disease. Most of the time, we carry around in our bodies viruses and bacteria and protozoa all day, every day. Most of us are infected right now with viruses and bacteria. But as long as your immune system is comparable and can keep it at bay, then you don't become toxic. In science, we call it toxic. In everyday human nomenclature, you refer to that as being sick. I got a disease. That just means that the viruses or the bacteria numbers have reached a level of toxicity, and now that toxicity has placed your body at a dis-ease. Your body is no longer at ease because the level of toxicity of this bacteria or virus has reached a level that now it has caused your body to be toxic, and you call that a disease. So by just keeping your body healthy, I believe that that's the best approach, because if I must be honest, and I have to be, we just don't know enough about this virus to make an assessment. We know what's being reported, but how many of us have taken a sample of this virus from somebody in China, brought it back to a laboratory, and characterized it? You see, this is the only way that you can say you know. And you probably don't know anyone who's done that. Therefore, anything that you say, it's only something that you've read somewhere or something you've heard someone say. And I don't necessarily go on things like that. I like to get firsthand information if I can.
So, from both of your professional perspectives, what is the go forward for people in the world who are watching this, people in America who are watching this, as it relates to influenza, now specifically the coronavirus? How should one react? Because, you know, people will be in the office coughing, you'll be at home, you get a sore throat. Do you run to the doctor? Do you take Theraflu? What are the suggestions? Because, you know, a lot of people will be getting hyper excited about getting sick now.
Well, I'd like to start, if I may, to address that. And my screen is actually up that I'd like to share regarding that as we go to the study that was done at the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases that Eric Muhammad had come on. And this study actually shows, and they state that there is, due to SARS, and that is a syndrome that is caused by a coronavirus. And it's stating that with the SARS coronavirus infected patients, suggests that this therapy, which is above the interferon alpha 1, is this therapy is well tolerated and of therapeutic benefit. And therapeutic just meaning healing or restorative to health or treatment on a treatment level. And this has, it shows that it has shown some potent antiviral activity against SARS. So with that being said, what we have and what we have to offer is interferon. This is the more natural form of the interferon immunotherapy that our bodies can definitely use. It can definitely help our bodies to prevent or avoid such effects of such a virus and others that can be more virulent. So along with those things that Mr. Victer Muhammad stated on how we can prep ourselves, how we can make sure that our bodies are strong enough to ward off those things that we may come in contact with. This, in fact, the immunotherapy would in fact help to enhance that, enhance our bodies to prevent and to avoid us from getting very sick or even cause a fatality if, unfortunately, one of us were to be infected and be in contact with someone that has coronavirus or any other virulent virus that is novel or manufactured. However, that is something that I would recommend wholeheartedly. It's something that I do every day, starting with flu season. I never get influenza vaccines. I am around people who come to me for their therapy who are sick. I go to patients' homes and do house calls and patients that are sick, their families that are sick. And I thank God, Allah, that I have not been sick. This is going on the second year that I have been in those areas where influenza, in particular, Pontiac, Illinois, last year, year before, was endemic. Influenza was very virulent and expansive in the area where I worked, and not one day sick. And I'm counting, but this is something that I do and make a part of my regimen every day. So this is one of the best recommendations that I see, especially now that we don't really know much about the virus. But one thing we do know about the immunotherapy is it will work well with the body and it will enhance the body's ability to fight viruses, bacteria, and fungi, parasites. It will help.
Mr. Victer Muhammad, can you take us further into the understanding of what the Army, was that the military said as it relates to interferon alpha and how the supplement can help anyone dealing with any type of influenza or virus specifically?
Yes, sir. In research, where you are testing a substance for its ability to treat, cure, stop, reverse a disease, you have to move in a very methodical manner. And every step that you take has to be measured and recorded. The study that Dr. Muhammad just recited was a study that was conducted in vitro. And in vitro means in a test tube or in glass, which is in a test tube. It was not done in a human or in vivo, meaning inside a body. It was done in vitro, where the coronavirus was placed in a petri dish or in a beaker in a solution, and the interferon alpha-con 1 suspension was added to the solution. And it did report that it had some stopping ability on the spread of the virus, on the spread of the coronavirus. But that is positive. That was done in 2002 or 2003. So we're talking about 17 years ago. And it did show some stopping ability in vitro. But what's done in vitro, and I have to say it this way, what's done in vitro, meaning in the test tube, is not always transferable to in vivo, meaning inside the body, once you take it yourself. Now, so that is a positive thing. But also the interferon that was used in this study was a recombinant, a GMO interferon, a genetically engineered interferon. It's not the interferon that naturally occurs in nature. The supplement, the product that we use is a natural interferon, meaning that this is the same kind of interferon that you would find in your nose. If you were to take a sample of your nose or the saliva in your mouth, this is the same interferon that your body produces. So if they receive positive reactions from the interferon that they use, which is a genetically engineered interferon, then it would be reasonable to conclude that the one that we have, the naturally occurring one, would even be more effective. Now, there is no report of which I've been able to locate in the literature where interferon alpha, the naturally occurring interferon alpha, has been used to treat SARS. But since the virus, the coronavirus that is reported to cause SARS, and the hepatitis C virus is also a coronavirus, and it's the same type, a plus RNA virus. So it would be reasonable to extrapolate from these two sets of data, one being a positive result from a recombinant form of the interferon alpha, and two, that the effective treatment using this recombinant interferon alpha was on a coronavirus, the one that causes SARS. And we have used, in the past, we have used successfully interferon alpha suspension on hepatitis C, and it has proven to be very effective. Therefore, one having a reasonable understanding in these sciences would conclude that if a person were to take an interferon suspension of natural interferon, the one that we've been using since 1994, that it would be effective in arresting the pathogenicity of the coronavirus that is now killing more than 800 people in China. This is the way we would have to report this to you in order to stay and remain on the side of fact. So yes, this is how I would report it. So my recommendation to those people who are listening would be to contact Nature's V and Health at its Best to get more information on this suspension of interferon alpha that is being used by the people who are distributing it here in America.
Thank you, Mr. Victer Muhammad. Many might not be familiar with the history of interferon alpha and its usages in America and other countries. Can you just give us, Mr. Victer Muhammad and Dr. Patrice Muhammad, we have 10 minutes left in the program, a background of the usages of the protein or the amino acid that we're speaking of?
Dr. Muhammad?
Well, I will go with the more current usage that I personally have recommended it and have worked with patients regarding it. And Mr. Victer Muhammad can go with the more historical and up to modern day also. I have recommended the immunotherapy for patients with viruses, HIV, hepatitis, herpes simplex 1 and 2, chronic renal failure, congestive heart failure, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Let me think. Lupus, sarcoidosis, multiple sclerosis. Rheumatoid arthritis. Trying to think of other organ systems that I have used this for. That's quite an extensive list of people who are using the immunotherapy for conditions that were not initially thought to be used for. I mean, initially, Mr. Victer Muhammad can go into how he designed the immunotherapy in the early 1990s, as he just mentioned. However, with my experience, the usage is more vast and it has been effective. High blood pressure, just what we call a malignant hypertension. High blood pressure just does not go down unless you give it multiple agents for it to be reduced. And still in that, blood pressure stays above what's recommended. So those are all the conditions that I've used the immunotherapy for. And also, one last use I'm just thinking of now is for infertility. Infertility actually caused a postmenopausal female to ovulate again. So that's my full use and experience with immunotherapy.
Mr. Victer Muhammad?
I think the most effective approach to that question, Mr. Muhammad, is to have the participants and the listeners go onto YouTube and see the previous videos that we've done on the interferon alpha preparation. We've done videos on the case studies of the interferon alpha. We've done interviews on the history of the interferon alpha. Here on Nature's V website, naturesv.com website. Also, if you go to YouTube and search Dr. Lee, New Wellness Help. You'll find a video that we did last year, maybe around June of last year, that goes very into detail on the uses of interferon alpha and the history of it. And I think that if you were to view those videos, they would give you a much better insight and historical look into the use of interferon alpha in human and animal studies and health. That's what I would recommend.
We've gotten down to our last 5 minutes of our program today, and we'd like to thank both of you for what you shared with us. This is a very timely topic, dealing with the corona SARS virus and the knowledge that people need to protect their health and move intelligently. Dr. Muhammad, question. I'm coughing. I have a fever. Do I need to go to the doctor to determine what's going on with me immediately in today's world?
Well, in today's world, if you have the capacity and the luxury of being able to go and get yourself checked out, sure, of course, you can err on the side of caution. However, I just must also still mention that a cough with fever, even headache, body aches, that and more times than not is maybe influenza or just a cold. And I would say if the fever is high, if there are other symptoms that are problematic, because again, even in influenza, you can have vomiting, you can have abdominal cramping, you can have diarrhea, you can have sweating, increased heart rate. All of these things can be the full gamut of symptoms of influenza. However, if there has been if you're taking some medication, if your headache is pounding, if there are symptoms that are of concern to you, then yes, I will recommend you to go and be examined. Because most people in today's society, they don't usually, at the first sign of a common cold or fever and symptoms, they basically try to treat those things at home. They don't necessarily run to the doctor. But if you have a high index of suspicion, if you think, this is something different from the cold I had, a few months ago or last year, this is something different from the flu I had before. I feel a little different. And even if it is a little bit, just being a little too cautious, again, please go get yourself checked out.
We would like to let our viewers know that you can reach Dr. Muhammad at healthatitsbest.net. You can send or ask questions to Mr. Victer Muhammad at lsow.org. That's lifesciencesofwashington.org. Or you can reach him at natures-v.com. You can obtain the supplement from myself, Mr. Muhammad, and Dr. Muhammad. And any questions that you have, please submit to us, and we'll be more than happy to get back to you with a timely response. We understand that you don't have many places to get real information. So I'd like to thank, first of all, Dr. Patrice Muhammad for coming on of Health at Its Best in Chicago, Illinois. We'd like to thank biomedical, research scientist and engineer, and agricultural scientist, Mr. Victer Muhammad. And I'd like to thank you for tuning in on this timely subject, and thank you both for taking the time to give us a background so we can help ourselves during this information onslaught as it relates to our health and what goes on with us every day. So we thank you both for coming on. If you have any closing remarks, I'll leave the floor open. But if not, we thank you very much. Any closing remarks today?
I'd just like to give my email. The email is healthatitsbest1@gmail.com, as well as the website as Mr. Eric Muhammad stated, is healthatitsbest.net.
You can reach Victer Muhammad at natures-v.com. That's natures-v.com. Or you can reach him at lsow.org. My name is Eric Muhammad. This has been Life Sciences in Washington, How to Eat to Live. We thank you all for tuning in, and may God bless you all with a very productive week. And God willing, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.